It all starts with a young man, whom we'll refer to as the protagonist due to his anonymity, who is engaged in mundane village chores like chopping wood. While looking up to the sky, he overhears a villager yearning for a life among the clouds. This moment of tranquility is shattered when a neighbor, in a state of panic, warns that malevolent creatures are nearing. The village leader entrusts the protagonist with the safety of the children, urging him to lead them to a cave atop a hill for refuge from the looming chaos. As the villagers arm themselves with rudimentary weapons, preparing to face the demonic foes, their chances of survival seem bleak. In the midst of their hurried escape, a child trips in a comically tragic manner, epitomizing the pandemonium. However, in a grim turn of events, one child is consumed by a gargantuan centipede during a moment of inattention. Initially, it seems the protagonist might unleash a hidden power to combat the creature, but his attacks prove futile against its impenetrable armor. Facing the inevitable, the protagonist flees with the sole surviving child, following the noble sacrifice of the one who had stumbled. Tragically, this child too succumbs, poisoned by the beast in an unnoticed moment, leaving us with haunting questions. Upon his somber return to the village, the protagonist finds nothing but ruins, a testament to the devastating power of the creatures. In the aftermath, amidst persistent rain, an elder named Scars arrives, inquiring about the village he had hoped to find refuge in. The protagonist recounts the tragic fate of the village, now reduced to memories and graves he is digging for the fallen. Moved by Scar's frailty, he offers the old man sustenance. Their ensuing conversation delves into the protagonist's philosophy that the realms of light and darkness are integral to the world's balance, yet he questions the king's decisions in these turbulent times. There, the old man asks him what he thinks is right, to which the guy says that everyone on Earth should be happy. However, Scars says that things are not like that. Then, the protagonist continues digging, saying that he would dig until he reaches the sky. This intrigues the old man, so he tells him that to achieve that goal of making everyone happy, he must become strong. So, out of nowhere, Skur throws a sword at the prota and tells him to stop talking and let the battle begin. So, they start fighting. Obviously Skur easily defeats him. And it's because the old man looks like a powerful knight. However, the planton surrenders, where he tells the old man that although his goal is difficult, he wants to change the kingdom so that innocent people stop dying. The old man, upon hearing that, tells him that if he wants to make a real change, he must become the king of the Dark Kingdom. There we learn that Scars was an aspiring root of darkness, but was defeated. The Brotal sees a good opportunity and manages to disarm the old man in that instant. The knight falls to the ground. The old man tells him that his life is about to end since he recently faced the King of Darkness but lost, and because of that he was very badly hurt. And before dying, the general gives his sword to the prota and tells him to go to the capital of the Dark Kingdom, that when he arrives there he must meet Ballas, his most loyal servant. And well, that's how the prota leaves the old man to die, where a great aura of power emanates from the boy, now having a new life goal to become the next King of Darkness. On the other hand, in the Kingdom of Light, Iris, the queen of the place, is fighting several demons from the Dark Kingdom. Thanks to the power of the protective rune that the enemy so desires, they manage to defeat them all. After the victory, we see Queen Iridis in her chambers, worried because she feels the presence of the King of Darkness more and more, and she doesn't know how much longer she can resist his attacks. Therefore, she orders an increase in the number of soldiers. Meanwhile, in the capital, the protagonist meets Ballas, who, upon seeing that the emo has his master's sword, thinks he stole it and begins to attack him. But after the emo explains everything, he realizes that he must now serve him, so he recognizes him and decides to take him to his new mansion, returning with Iris after having had a huge mess. Another one appears since this same night the kingdom is attacked by B, a huge monster. While the Dark Kingdom is chilling, the Kingdom of Light is in chaos. Chaos reigns in the darkness of light, and there the beautiful waifu Iris orders to go save her people. But the enemy called Val destroys buildings without mercy, and just when he was about to beat up some soldiers, out of nowhere comes a powerful guy who looks like he's buffed, and well, this handsome guy is Alantia, the king of the elves, a very powerful mage who controls the elements. Being so powerful, he says he will take care of Val himself. There, they begin to face off, where the king of the elves uses magical elements as weapons, which at first we thought were quite powerful, but however, his defense is surpassed in a matter of seconds, leaving the elf looking scared. And well, that's how Alantia has used his maximum spells and realizes that he cannot surpass the powerful Val in any aspect, who simply sees him as an ant. The elf is screwed. Fear takes over Alantia. However, out of nowhere appears the powerful goddess Iris, the waifu. Seeing that several of her soldiers and friends have been falling in battle, makes her angry. With a lot of flow, she tells Ball that if he stays longer in the place, she will give him a VIP ticket for Michael Jackson's concert. Seriously, while that mess is happening, the leader of the Knights of Light receives the message that they have seen several enemy troops approaching through the forests, and the guy asks for support from Shama to guard their backs while they take care of the battlefront, preventing any enemy from touching them. This doesn't convince the general, and he also tells them that it's a disgrace that they are deserting now. They mention that they were never warriors, that they are just simple peasants who were unfairly recruited from their world to be forced to fight in a battle. There, the attitude of the knights changes, and an evil aura comes out of them, so the mess is practically inevitable. The evil entity controlled them so that they wouldn't speak out. Returning to Iris, she realizes that she has no chance against such a powerful opponent, so she decides to ask for more power from the progenitor rune. However, she stops herself because she remembers that if she uses more power than the limit, the rune will lose its stability, which could cause a catastrophe in the entire kingdom. So, well, Ball, seeing that none of them are fit to face him, decides to leave the place. And back in the world of the Proto, Balu meets with the King of Darkness, where he tells him that an army must be organized to attack the White Kingdom. But Balu knows that the troops of the kingdom are as strong as he thinks. It is very clear that launching such a magnitude attack on the Kingdom of Light would practically make him lose everything. But this doesn't matter to the king since he only wants darkness to consume everything. But despite having that goal in mind, the first thing he wants to do is destroy Ball because this enemy could be very dangerous for both kingdoms. Returning to the Proto, he asks Ballas to teach him how to fight with a sword. But before that, the white-haired man explains that to become king, he will have to learn everything necessary to become a good successor. So, he gives him literature and history classes, as well as teaching him to fight until he reaches a point where the Proto can defeat him. Where Ballas decides to grant him an armor that only the one who is an aspirant to the throne's successor can wear, and well, it was also used by the old man at the beginning. Further on, in what seems to be the middle of nowhere, we meet Grossa, a candidate for the position of the Dark Kingdom, where she has a couple of reasons why she should be queen. One is that she's beautiful and two is that she's powerful. Grossa, while traveling through a field with her soldiers, is attacked by some beasts, which she initially eliminates without problems. However, in a careless moment, she is attacked by another one, and of course, the protagonist arrives to save her. Well, the guy ends up looking like a badass, and the waifu kinda falls for him. Although the detail is that the waifu was actually looking for him. Anyway, as a gesture of gratitude, she invites him to a bar, where she finds out that he is also a candidate to become the king. There, she tells him that to be the number one, he must compete against the other candidates, and that way he can obtain the dark sword, which would make him the rightful Prince of Darkness. This leaves the protagonist pensive because he had already grown fond of the sword given to him by the old man. Now, back with the waifu Iris, she is in her chambers when another waifu arrives, telling her that she always seems to be at peace, just like the previous queen. And well, when we say the previous queen, Iris remembers her past when she and her sister Shama were the heirs to the throne. However, both from a very young age promised themselves not to hold grudges against whoever became queen. But Iris didn't trust herself much because she believed she didn't have enough courage to protect the entire kingdom. Well, the thing is that after going to eat at Shama's house, the young knight accompanies waifu Iris to her house, where we can already see that the guy was in love with the waifu, but still keeps it a secret. There, Iris asks Fias what he needed to be a good Queen of Light, to which the guy tells her that it was important for her to discover it for herself. He also tells her that, as a warrior, he only focuses on protecting whoever the queen is, promising her that he will always be by her side to protect her. After this, we see that one day Iris was praying when suddenly she is attacked by darkness, and she, without fear of success, decides to face it on her own and without anyone by her side, thus managing to fend off the attack and understanding that her duty would be to fight with all her might and no matter how lonely her path may be. Anyway, back with our handsome emo, he prepares to go to the combat contest to obtain the legendary sword. There, the protagonist asks Balu if he will accompany him, and he tells him that he must stay to attend some important matters with the king. However, he comments that he is sure that the protagonist will win easily because he was able to defeat him in a training match. Once on the battlefield, Miss Opus puts everyone in context. This tournament consists of a battle against creatures. Whoever manages to defeat the most evil beasts and manages to stay alive will move on to the next round. In the end, the winner of all the events will get the legendary sword that will make him the rightful Prince of Darkness. The combat begins, and there we see the young ones in the first round, where everyone, or well, almost everyone, manages to defeat the beasts with ease. And yes, I said almost everyone, because this gay FG Sarah messed up the spell, and when she was about to be attacked, the protagonist saved her. This kind of annoyed everyone because it didn't make sense to help the rivals. But well, this takes a back seat, and there out of nowhere appears the final boss, this beastly beast. And yes, it's a huge cyclops that starts beating up each and every one of them. There, in that, the sorceress from before was going to attack the cyclops alongside another warrior, but the protagonist gives her time to knock her out, and then the guy, having learned new battle techniques, he manages to defeat the creature without complications, leading only Adele and the protagonist. Yes, this redhead is Adele, another guy who wants the powerful weapon. However, the guy is a little angry at the protagonist for the act of help he did. And it's because this guy's ideology says that if you're going to be the Dark King, you shouldn't have pity or mercy on anyone. Well, there, in a small flashback, we see that he lived alone when he was little, but our emo says that he wouldn't be like that, and that in fact, he wants to be the King of Darkness to unite both worlds and make everything a single kingdom of peace and tranquility. Okay, people, now we begin the final battle where Adele, full of anger, tries to defeat the protagonist. At first, we see that they are evenly matched in skill, but as expected, our emo is more powerful, where he puts Adele in a dangerous situation, making him accept his defeat. After that, Pra receives the legendary sword, thus remaining in a badass way with the victory and thus being the main successor to the throne. Well, after this and already returning to his mansion, Ballas congratulates him and tells him that now he has a new mission, which consists of delivering a letter to the Kingdom of Light, where the Prince of Darkness is the only one who can do it, which pleases the protagonist. But well, something tells me this won't end well. After this, we see these guys rowing, but it really wasn't necessary because they were on a flying boat propelled by magic. Anyway, there we see that on the boat was the protagonist, the redhead, and the green-haired waifu, and well, effectively, the protagonist accepted the mission, and when they were arriving, Adele came up with a plan in which the protagonist will go as a supposed bodyguard, because obviously, the Kingdom of Darkness and Light are at war, and if the protagonist goes as the next King of Darkness, well, he might not make it. That's where they finally arrive at the port where Fias receives them. He arrives in a bad way, well on the defensive, which makes the protagonist quickly prepare his weapon. So the tension in the environment becomes present. The situation seemed like it was going to end up in a fight, but Adele tells the protagonist to shut up and brings out his great social and diplomatic skills. The protagonist almost ruins everything, but that way, he manages to convince Fias that they are not bad people and that they even brought a message with them, leaving as a spoiler that is related to forming an alliance to defeat Baal, so the knight accepts and lets them pass. However, he will keep an eye on them, and Ade asks Fias to take them to the queen as they need to deliver the message from the Dark King. This message could change the future of both kingdoms. However, while walking through the streets of the Light Kingdom, people are scared to see two members of the Demon Kingdom, murmuring and calling them demons. Protagonist doesn't like it. Upon arriving at the hall, the protagonist meets Iris for the first time, enchanted by her beauty. The meeting of both kingdoms begins, and while reading the letter, the protagonist learns that the Dark King wants to create an alliance with the Light Kingdom because they have a common enemy to defeat, obviously Baal, who enjoys destroying everything for fun, as he still hasn't found a worthy opponent. Iris is unsure whether to accept the Dark King's proposal because he's known for being cruel and heartless. So, she decides to think about it calmly and asks the young ones to stay in the palace until she makes a decision. Meanwhile, the protagonist, being taken to his room, is curious to know more about the queen and asks the knight, who gets annoyed because a commoner shouldn't say the name of the girl so casually. Ade apologizes for his bad behavior, and we find out that our emo is posing as a bodyguard for some reason, not wanting to reveal that he is the Prince of Darkness. The day passes, and they meet Iris again, who surprisingly wants to ask something to the protagonist, who everyone thinks is just a bodyguard. She asks for his opinion on the alliance, and he responds that it would be very beneficial since Baal keeps destroying innocent villages in both the Dark and Light Kingdoms. So, Iris decides to accept the alliance, and both kingdoms will unite to destroy Baal. Days pass, and the leader of the knights informs Shama that the queen has left, worrying her because she went alone, and he thinks that both young men seem good as they haven't tried to do anything wrong and are always in their room sleeping. Shama says she'll find out if they're good or not when she meets them, but for now, she will go to sleep. We go to the demon world, where the Dark King's forces are prepared, led by Balas and the woman with the opes. Just then, Baal arrives and falls into the supposed trap they had set. However, this dragon-like creature was only seeking destruction for caprice and because it still hadn't found a worthy rival. So, Balu approaches him and confronts him face to face with his fire sword, then throws several flying demons at him, but he easily destroys them with a wave of his arm. Then the green-haired waifu throws in tremendous magic power, but it doesn't affect him either, so he ends up jumping from the tower. After that, we see several demons trying to enclose him with power barriers, but it's useless. Balas and Grossa are the only ones who can stand up to him, using their enormous powers, but Val just laughs and enjoys it, as he felt that attack a little, although it only seemed like a message to him. And when we see that Balas and Grosse are the only ones left and decide to give everything they have left to both, but B stops them with an immobilizing power. Then, he takes advantage of it to create a supernova that was going to send them to San Pedro. But when he prepares to destroy everything, the Dark King appears without warning. Thanks to his appearance, he can save his two great soldiers. The man covers the whole place with darkness, which doesn't scare Baal at all. So, they engage in a huge duel of titans, blows and spells flying everywhere. Val, seeing that the king doesn't show up, goes crazy and starts launching explosions everywhere, like Bills in the Battle of the Gods from Dragon Ball. The Dark King realizes that his great power doesn't come close to B's, but what nobody expected is that Iris would appear, trapping the creature with huge chains of light. However, these won't serve her for long, so seeing that she needs more power, the waifu makes a connection with the rune. This helps her maintain her spell, and that way, the Dark King can take Baal to Tartarus. Tartarus is this kind of volcano that begins to swallow him slowly to enclose him for all eternity. There we see that for a few seconds, the Dark King locks eyes with the Queen of Light. But well, after that battle, Iris returns to her kingdom. There, while the protagonist talks to Shama, he realizes that the queen is in bad shape, so he decides to rescue her. So, the man runs and manages to catch her in his arms just as she falls. Shama takes her to her quarters, where she realizes that Iris used more power than necessary, and now her body is in serious condition because she practically gave all the freedom to the rune to pass power through her. Knowing this, she tells Fias to inform the guests of the battle's outcome. He goes to see them, and the protagonist asks about the queen. But Fias's man tells him it's none of his business, so they learn right away that they defeated Baal, and our guys can now leave that place. Although, well, Balas gives him a grim letter that must be delivered to the Kingdom of Light urgently. So, encouraged to see our protagonist, she sets off for the city in the sky as soon as possible. After the chaos passed and Iris recovered, it's time for the departure of our protagonist and Adele. The redhead, with his wise words, tells the queen that he will try to convince the Dark King to stop the war and make everything a place of peace because many people in those lands refuse to fight and are practically forced to do so, falling under control. But anyone who says otherwise ends up being executed. As Fias had already become Adele's buddy, he tells him that this is madness because refusing to fight will endanger his life and everything else. But Adele already has a determination and a goal set. However, by script coincidences, right at that moment, Grossa arrives with a new letter where the Dark King asks to extend the peace alliance to rebuild his village from the destruction caused by B. An alliance that Iris accepts gladly, so now he can stay alive since he won't have to speak directly with the king. Well, as now the three will remain longer in the palace, Iris decides to give them a tour personally around the place. There, Grossa realizes that the protagonist is interested in Iris, which depresses her and makes her a little jealous. Well, while they explore the place, they come across Uncle, Fias's brother. There, they learn that the little one has healing powers because, well, the boy was in the yard healing some strange birds that inhabit that place. This surprises Fias because he thought his brother would become a warrior like him, so seeing that he maintains great potential with magic, he sets him free. There, while they talk about life and how Grossa wants the protagonist to see her, she suggests to the girls that they should exchange clothes to see if the dark and red colors suit them well, and the boys should also change their clothes. So, They try on the clothes until it's Iris's turn, where it's clear that OSA has a much larger size in certain areas of the body compared to the queen, and as expected, her clothes are quite loose on her. Finally, Shama puts on Grossa's clothes, where her attributes fit perfectly, and both look spectacular. But the protagonist praises both equally and, in fact, keeps looking more at the queen than at the other two. Yes, people, the protagonist is crazy about the queen, which doesn't leave the lady or pious at all happy. Well, then they start playing Eaters, where the royal knight is a Wednesday in the game since everyone beats him, but he doesn't want to accept defeat. After that, they have dinner and discuss the different dishes, where they see that the Dark Kingdom had much more intense flavors compared to the Light Kingdom. However, the protagonist combines both flavors, leaving a much tastier dish that everyone loves and makes them have a great time. There we can see that the queen is also happy and that she hadn't had such a pleasant time in a long time, so she proposes to everyone to go out and harvest fruits the next day. Well, that night, Grossa talks to the protagonist, and she tells him that if he wants to talk to someone, she'll listen to him, and well, our emo tells her that he's surprised that the princess is someone normal. Grossa tells him that he too was someone normal and that when he becomes king, she would like to be with him. But the jerk doesn't catch the hint and thinks that the girl will only be his bodyguard. After everyone slept like babies, they meet again, but this time in the kingdom's forest since their main mission was to collect wild vegetables. The thing is that before starting their field adventure, Adele proposes that they make teams so they would create a cool competition to see who collects more vegetables. The waifu Opai gets excited since it's a good idea to spend more time with the people they want. The waifu is crazy about staying with the protagonist, and FIU also gets excited since the guy wants to be alone with the queen. But well, before starting the search and creating the teams, Iris explains to everyone how they should find the fruits, giving them advice and showing them different plants they should choose since many of them were not edible. Anyway, they realize that the queen would have a lot of advantage since, well, it's her favorite pastime, so they all decide to leave her out of the competition. The protagonist ends up forming a continuous group, which has no idea what to collect. Fias stays with the waifu of the piece, and Adele, well, with his succulent waifu. However, the queen ends up helping the protagonist's group since, well, she really had no idea what to pick. Fias and Grossa are suspicious because their crews are together, and both seem very happy. And well, Adele's team and the other waifu were slow but safe. In the end, the protagonist's team wins with Iris's help. But after gathering all the vegetables and seeing that they are outdoors, Iris decides to cook lunch with the collected ingredients. So, everyone starts gathering wood, cleaning the vegetables, among other things, to relieve the queen of the kitchen burden. All this, while Iris decides to go wash the vegetables, but in that, the protagonist arrives running, asking where the hell Uncle is because he had gotten lost, but this guy ends up tripping over a rock and falls into the water with the queen, both getting soaking wet. Iris thanks him because the guy showed his concern, but tells him that Uncle is fine since the boy went with Grossa and Shama. They both blush because they notice that their clothes stick to them, you know, the typical romance scene. Anyway, after that chaos, everyone cooperates to make lunch. There, they enjoy a delicious meal prepared by Iris. Grossa is still jealous, but at the same time, everyone has been able to create a nice bond of friendship despite being from different worlds. After that beautiful day, the protagonist and Adele receive a message from their king ordering them to return quickly to the Dark Kingdom, which leaves Adele very puzzled since he was already getting used to that kingdom, had a new buddy, and well, there was a girl he was interested in. The weirdest thing is that the king didn't give any reason for them to return. The thing is that Adele and the protagonist decide to say goodbye to the queen, where they receive their weapons, and Iris also gives them a letter, which is a free trade agreement between both kingdoms. This is to try to end the wars and create a world full of peace, news that makes the protagonist happy. Adele agrees to deliver the message to his king, but however, the redhead's attitude begins to change, where he starts saying nonsensical things. Everyone worries and thinks it's a joke from the kid, but out of nowhere, his appearance changes in a demonic way since he is possessed by the Dark King. Adele tries to end the queen's life, but the emo guy throws himself at great speed and ends up cutting his friend in half. As expected, Fias is surprised to see that his buddy was worthless. By orders of this old man, they capture the protagonist, giving him a beating and taking him to prison. Meanwhile, Grossa is on the boat receiving the merchandise with which she would negotiate. She notices that the ship sets sail since it turns out that everyone is going to capture her. So, the soldiers decided to escape before something worse happened. At that moment, the alliance between both kingdoms is cut off at the root. On the other hand, the commander of the knights is in a state of desperation and shock since he had hoped that peace would come so that the wars would finally end. But what hurts him is that he had trusted a demon that he himself thought was good and who ended up betraying his trust. Meanwhile, Iris visits the progenitor rune, which tells her to choose her destiny and who she should protect. A huge light surrounds her. We go back to the protagonist who was in a cell, thinking about everything that had happened, and how after finishing off his friend, he said that those from the Dark Kingdom really suffered. But then a great light reaches the protagonist's cell, where an adorable white cat appears. The feline with magic opens the door and helps him escape through the rooftops, taking him to a hill where his weapons are. Then the cat disappears after a great light appears, taking the form of the progenitor rune. However, we realize that Iris is inside it. The rune is destroyed and falls, but the protagonist catches it again. There, the waifu, taking the protagonist's hand, feels that they create a bond. But this is not all, since the protagonist hugs her and tells her that he has the same desire as her, which is to protect everyone and live happily. So, the protagonist finally reveals to her that he is the Prince of Darkness and the future king. Although this is not a surprise for the waifu since she had already been able to feel it. Well, there we see that they make the promise to create a new world together and protect everyone so that both kingdoms can live happily and in peace together. However, their conversation cannot continue since many soldiers are after the protagonist, and that's how they say goodbye for the moment, and the protagonist escapes. The next day, Iris faces several demons that arrive at the kingdom. However, the girl's health is somewhat delicate. Despite that, she can defeat them very easily, returning to her throne because she has a meeting with Shama and Fias to prepare all the kingdom's warriors for the Great War. There, Fias tells the waifu that he will leave the army, and it's not because he's a coward. He explains the situation, and it turns out that seeing Iris in bad shape, he wants to find some medicine to heal her. Iris tells him not to worry because she already has a lot of flow, and besides, the guy is a key piece in the army, so he can't leave since something very important is coming. But Fias doesn't care what Iris says and decides to leave the place, leaving his sister in charge of everything. Where Shama tells him not to do anything crazy. The protagonist goes to meet the leader of the elves. Fias tells him everything that is happening and what he wants to find. As expected, the elf, having a lot of wisdom, tells him that there is something that can save her. It turns out that Iris, in her physical state, is fine, but the magical threads of her energy are messed up. These will regenerate over time, but if she keeps having strong fights, she will never be able to recover. The elf mentions that in a distant cave, there is an element called Shining Drops. This has the ability to heal anyone's magical energy in a matter of seconds. The little big problem is that in said cave, there are many adversities that would send him to meet San Pedro. Fias tells him that there is nothing that can stop them because if the guy doesn't plan on going alone, and in the end, both leave together, where Fias lies to the elf telling him that he left his post since the queen had given him permission. Returning with the protagonist, this guy managed to reach his city where he was prohibited from entering the palace. There he ends up arriving at his house where later he has a training session with Ballas. There, the demonic elf tells the protagonist that he now sees him with more determination than before and that apparently he has a fixed goal. In that, Grossa appears, who mentions to the protagonist that by orders of the king, he must go to fight against some creatures on the outskirts of the capital since the soldiers would not be strong enough to defeat them. But Balu knows that all that is a distraction so that the protagonist is entertained since the kingdom's forces are being prepared to go to fight against Iris. When being outside the capital, he falls out with the creatures mentioned. However, Grossa clumsily ends up falling off a cliff where the protagonist rescues her just then. He encounters a high-ranking demon, and things seem to get complicated. In a change of scene, we see that Fias enters a cave with the elf. Once inside and after walking for several hours, they reach a dead end. Being there without knowing what to do, the elf tells him to stay calm and him to be nervous, and the kid takes out some kind of arrow gun to shoot towards the ceiling and climb with a lot of style. There they find the way where Fias follows him. Although, well, he almost has a tremendous fall because he slips a little. As their journey progresses, the group encounters an invisible barrier. They discover a crystal beyond this barrier, which they shatter using potions. Subsequently, an elemental puzzle emerges, quickly solved by the elf companion. This leads them to a secluded lake harboring precious drops. However, the waters around the lake possess a corrosive quality, disintegrating everything they touch. Phias, displaying commendable bravery, wades into the water to retrieve a drop, albeit at the expense of his armor. Upon exiting the cave, they are confronted with the widespread devastation outside. Demonic forces have besieged the city, where Shama is valiantly striving to protect the citizens. The city's defenders manage to repel numerous demons, but as their numbers wane against an ever-increasing enemy, the queen orchestrates a powerful magical spell. This spell involves a coven of witches pooling their strengths to erect a formidable magical barrier. Limited by their collective power, Iris expends her energy to fortify the barrier, leaving her significantly weakened and in a precarious state. Phias arrives just in time with a potion that swiftly restores Iris's magical reserves. Meanwhile, the protagonist faces a formidable beast, and with Grosa's assistance, they employ combined tactics to vanquish it. After the battle, Grosa brings the protagonist to a mansion for rest and solitude. There, she confesses her love, recognizing his aspirations to return to the Kingdom of Light. Despite her declaration, the protagonist remains focused on his mission to build a new realm with Iris, leaving Grosa heartbroken and fleeing, yet resolved to support him regardless of his path. Iris, having regained her strength, begins to engage with the rune, hopeful for a reunion with the protagonist. When Phias returns, he reaffirms his allegiance as her knight, a gesture Iris deeply appreciates. Despite her fatigue, Iris decides to dismantle the protective barrier to confront the demonic forces directly. The confrontation escalates when the Dark King enters the fray, leading to a climactic duel between light and darkness. As the battle intensifies, Ballas, the formidable elf, joins the struggle, further tipping the scales in favor of darkness, which begins to envelop the kingdom. Facing overwhelming odds, Iris contemplates a drastic measure, a secret technique involving time travel to alter their fate. However, she soon realizes that every potential outcome leads to the Kingdom of Light's downfall under the Dark Monarch's dominion. Concluding that a monumental sacrifice is necessary to save humanity, Iris prepares to use a devastating technique that will also claim her life. In a dramatic shift, the protagonist infiltrates the Dark Lord's stronghold, encountering Adel, who reveals his survival and ambitions to usurp the Demon King's throne. Despite the protagonist's valiant effort, Adel gains the upper hand until a moment of overconfidence allows the protagonist to strike a critical blow. Adel discloses the Dark King's apocalyptic plan involving the progenitor rune before vanishing. Racing against time, the protagonist, now endowed with demonic wings, hastens to the Kingdom of Light, only to witness its self-destruction initiated by Iris to thwart the Dark King's scheme. Despite his efforts, the protagonist is unable to save Iris, and in a final act of defiance, he destroys the Dark King before succumbing to the world's demise. Amidst the void, Phias's lingering spirit expresses betrayal and unforgiving sorrow, his laughter echoing ominously as a harbinger of unresolved vengeance. And so concludes the anime that has stirred so many emotions within us. I hope that in upcoming episodes, the answers will swiftly follow, so if you like this series, let me know in the comments. For now, I bid you farewell until next time, always reminding you that it's never too late to subscribe to my channel and become part of this wonderful community. Until next time.